Okay, so I'm going to assume you remember what the greatest common factor is. However, I just want to remind you that it's the smallest exponent is what we take. So we always take the smallest exponent. And so this is factoring by GCF is the first of 4 ways to factor. So we're always going to want to try to factor out a GCF first. This is always our first method to try. Okay, so we always want to factor by GCF first. Okay, and our steps to factoring are first to find the GCF of the polynomial. So find GCF of the polynomial. Okay, and we want to factor out, okay, that GCF. So factor out, or what you're really doing is actually undistributing. So factoring out is the same thing as undistributing. Okay, so remember when we found the GCF of something, we took that out of what we originally had. Okay, and then that leaves us with our resulting factor. Or really simplify. Okay, so this leaves us with our resulting factor, which is really just to simplify. All right, so let's look at example 1. Okay, we want to find our GCF. So we find the greatest common factor between 6 and 3. So think about that for a second. What's the greatest factor they share? Okay, so hopefully you said 3. And then we want to look at the exponents. Remember, we said we take the smallest exponent that the two share. So the smallest exponent that this binomial shares is n to the third. So we are taking a 3 n to the third from both of those. So we're pretty much dividing 6n to the third divided by 3n to the third. So we're taking the 6n to the third and really dividing that 3n to the third. So when you do that, you get 2. Okay, we always just leave our sign there. And then we're going to do the same thing here. What's 3n to the fifth divided by 3n to the third? We want to undistribute. We want to take that away. So if we take 3n to the third away from 3n to the fifth, you will have n to the second left over. So this is our whole answer here. We don't want to just write our GCF. We want to write the whole thing in factored form. Okay, so I want you to take a second and find the GCF of example 2. So take a moment and find the GCF. Okay, so hopefully you were thinking that the GCF is 7a. Okay, because you would be right. So we're going to divide each one of these by 7a. Okay, we're going to take away a 7a from each one of these. So our first thing is to always identify our GCF. Now we have to factor it out, or essentially divide each of these terms by that GCF. And our resulting factor, we always write our GCF out front. And then whatever we have left over is in parentheses. So 14a divided by 7a should be 2. 21a squared divided by 7a is 3a. And then 21a to the third divided by 7a is 3a squared. Okay. So I want you to pause and try example 3. So you're going to come down here and work on example 3. When you unpause, the answer will be there. Okay, so hopefully you got a GCF of 5, and then it's left over, or the resulting factor is 3a minus 5b plus 4. Okay, now looking at example 4, we want to look at all of our numbers. Is there a number that all of these can be factored by? Is there a factor that they all share? Is there a factor that they all share? Okay, you may be thinking, no. Okay, so there's not a factor they all share. So we can't take out a number GCF, but what about a variable? Is there a variable that they all share? That all 3 of these terms share? No. Okay. So there's not a variable and there's no number that they all share. So that means this is not factorable or it's prime. So prime or not factorable. So since I can't take a GCF out of these 3, this is not factorable. And I spelled that wrong, so it's ABLE. So it's not factorable or prime. I will be saying prime, but if not factorable works for you, then that's okay. So I want you to try example 5. This one's going to be a doozy, okay? So I would start by finding a number and then looking at all of your variables, okay? Okay, so hopefully between the numbers of 84 and 12, you knew that the GCF was 4. And then again, GCF, we take the smallest variables. So we take this a, we take the b squared, and we take the c squared. And because one has a d and one doesn't, we take the one without the d. So now this is our GCF. But remember, we have to divide each of those by our GCFs. And that gives us this 21c d to the 4th plus 3 a to the 3rd b. Okay?